And I will give the floor to our honorable speaker tonight. Welcome.
Years ago, in a thunderstorm, Benjamin Franklin felt the awesome power of invention when he discovered the power of electricity. Many successful businesses were founded by inventors. Thomas Edison, Edison Electric Company. Alexander Graham Bell, Bell Telephone. Henry Ford, Ford Motor Company. And the list goes on and on. The power of invention. A simple step-by-step video guide to cash in on your creativity and successfully develop, protect, and market your ideas. This video contains the following sections. Where do you begin? How to protect your creativity. How to prepare your presentation package. And how to market your product. We have all been exposed to the growth and changes that evolve through necessity and time. Success requires certain tools. Given these tools, each one of us can achieve our own individual goals. Perhaps yours is financial, environmental, medical, or one within the arts. The direction you choose is yours, but the achievement of your specific goals may need guidance. Here is where you and Alan can work together. You may not know who Alan Amron is, but if you spend any time with children, the odds are you've come across one of his inventions. What was once known as a squirt gun is now a high-tech, super-powered, battery-operated, pumped, drenched, and soaked water gun industry. He's taken a simple squirt gun that sold $3 million per year and helped turn it into a new industry worth well over $200 million in annual sales. And all with a simple invention. And now the inventor of the battery-operated water gun, Alan Amron.
Hello, I'm Alan Amron, and the first question I like to answer is people want to know why I'm in Latvia. And the answer to that is very simple. I have a family who has a home in Jumala, and I've been visiting them for the past 12 years, 3 times a year for 12 years, is 36, something like that times. And just recently I decided to come here and spend a lot more time. So I've been here for the past couple of months, and I started to do some of the lectures that I do at NYU in New York and in America, and bring it to Latvia and see how people here react to it. This is who I am. I have 45 years of experience in patenting and inventing. I have 40 United States patents issued, and I invented something that you all use in your offices and at home now. The press-on memo is what I called it years ago, but it's the Post-it note by 3M known to the world today. I've invented things like the photo wallet before there was any digital imaging on any phones, or before there were even phones in 1999. I have a system that I invented for the NFL and football, first down laser. And I partnered with people like Tina Sinatra, Muhammad Ali, Pat Summerall. And the reason I'm telling you is that not to impress you about this, but if you invent something really good enough, you could pretty much go to see anyone, because people like new, novel, and unique things. The reason I'm doing this lecture is because if I had this lecture when I was younger, it would have cut a lot of time and effort and money out of my life, and it would have helped me a lot more. So I want to give back to other people and help them with how they go about things. I'm going to ask questions after each step from the audience of that step, and at the end I could ask we'll answer general questions. First I'm going to go from step 1, which is the conception of an idea. Then I'm going to go to step 8, which is where you can make revenue from it. For example, with my battery-operated water gun, I did drawings, and that's what it looks like in the store. With Post-it note, I did drawings with press-on memo, and that's what it looks like in the store. The first step in any idea when you come up with the idea is to put it on paper. We call it a napkin drawing because usually you're at a hotel, a restaurant, or in the kitchen explaining this to someone, And usually the only thing around is a napkin. But obviously you could use any kind of piece of paper you want. Doesn't have to be a napkin. And that napkin drawing on the right, on the bottom, is one that I did. Obviously I'm not an artist, and if you look at that, you can't figure out really what it is. So I suggest you take that rough drawing to an artist, and then you ask them to do a rendering and explain to them exactly what the invention is. If you'll notice, my drawing's on the left on the bottom, and the artist drawing on the right, and then a little picture explaining what it actually does with a description is the best way to get your point across when you're trying to sell or license your idea. Step 2 is to search it. Now, step 1's simple. That's why I'm not asking any questions. Drawing it as soon as you think of it. Step 2 is searching it. Now, today you have Google Patents. You can go to Amazon.com. If you come up with a product, it's easy to search it. When I was younger, there was no Google. So for me to search the world, I had to look for magazines in Paris, magazines from Germany, and I had to see if any kind of publication mentioned the idea that I came up with. And if it didn't mention it, it wouldn't be prior art. If they did mention it, it would be considered prior art, and you can't file a patent on it. This is keyword searches that you do on Google today or Google Patent. Google Patent is you type in Google Patent, and up comes a screen that you put in more information in, and that's Google actually searches the patents all over the world for you to see whether there's a patent on the item. Regular Google will tell you if it's on the market, if it's at Amazon.com, or you could buy it in a local store. For example, I invented a bubble maker, a toy, and the keywords I used in my search were bubble, bubbles, water, sprinkler, and see what comes up. Usually if your idea comes up, stop working on it because it's already existing. Why would you want to spend more time and effort on it if somebody else already did it? This is the third step, drawings. You got to take your idea from the napkin drawing. Like I said, go to an artist and do renderings. After you do a rendering of the different drawings that, to describe what your invention is, you can explain it better to other people, and sometimes you end up seeing it better yourself as well. Step 4 is research and development. When you design something like I did with the Post-it note, you have to actually, even though it's a simple piece of paper with glue on it, you have to research it. You have to develop it. The first person I gave the Post-it note to, or the press-on memo to, they wrote their note, they pressed the paper on the wall, and they touched the middle, and it fell to the floor. And they told me, this doesn't work. This is so stupid. And I said, you got to press the top where the glue is. So what I did was I came up with a magic M on the top of a piece of paper, and I embossed it, and I put glue across the top. And then I said, when you write your note and you put it on the wall, press the magic M. Now, when you buy Post-it notes in the store, you don't have to think about it. You know you press the top of it. But that's the silly little things that when you're working on a product, you have to develop, and you have to get your point across and teach other people. The one on the right is a bubble toy that I made a prototype of, what we call a breadboard prototype, and showed it to Fisher-Price, and that's what Fisher-Price made from it. Just examples of a product that you could develop and then bring to market. Step 5 is protecting it. When you're protecting a product, well, first of all, in the search, if you didn't find it, that's when you're protected. If you found it, obviously you should stop right there. If you found it and you want to make it better, you can continue, but it's an uphill battle. I suggest that as soon as you come up with the idea and you search the world and don't find anything, you should file a provisional patent. It costs $130 at the United States Patent Office, and it's only $138, and you can fill out the forms yourself. Basically, it's one form that you see on the right there. You fill out the form with your address, your phone number, the description of your idea, and then you put all the information that you wrote and described and you drew and took pictures of and whatever, and you put that in an envelope. You mail it to the patent office, or online digitally today you could do it, and pay the credit card of $130 or 120 euros or whatever the equation is, and then you get back instantly as soon as they accept it, not reading it or anything. You'll get back a form from them with a United States provisional patent number on it. Now that patent number, you don't use the patent number, but you do on your product, you could write United States Patent Pending. Now for marketing, it's incredible power to put that on your new product. Also, the name of your product, you should put a TM at the top right-hand corner of your product's name, just so that if Anticipate getting a trademark on it in the future. The date you make it public with a TM on it is the first date of first use. 5 years from that, it becomes a registered mark, if nobody else in that class gets that mark first. And you'll find that out soon enough. A patent on the left is a utility patent. There are three kinds of patents. There's a utility patent, there's a chemical patent, and a plant patent. And then there's the design patent, but that's not really, I mean, just to give you an example, I have a design patent on the iPhone. I have a design patent on the iPad. But Apple, when I did it, in my design, there's no buttons on the front, because I thought the future of the world was just going to be touchscreen. I was pretty right about the touchscreen, but Apple put a button on the bottom on both their devices, so that avoided my design patent. So I don't think a design patent is very good to have. Obviously, I've been burnt by it, but that's not a recommended patent. Utility is the #1 patent. If you go to the Latvian Patent Office, there's a website that you can go to where you can get information on their fees and what you do in Latvia. I recommend you go to the United States Patent Office and also search out there. There's 320 million people in America. There's only 2 million people in Latvia, so you're better off going to America with your idea than staying in Latvia. 6 is to build it. You make a prototype so you could show people how it works. You could make a handmade prototype, which is that when I was younger, a Tommy gun was a famous toy gun. So I went and I made the gun into a water gun, and I actually brought it to toy companies and licensed it. Now I'm going to give you some ideas of products, from idea to store. And this is that silly toy looked like this.
Freeze!
Yeah!
That's so good! Yeah, get him!
No mercy!
You wouldn't shoot a guy in the back now, would ya? So good!
Fire,
fire,
Don't mess with. Shout and shoot too.
Fire, fire, fire! Gotcha!
You shout, and it shoots
Take a bath!
in any direction.
Fire, 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 fire! Now this is what I call back talk. Fire!
Voice-activated, multi-directional. Shout and shoot too. New from Cap Toys. Who else?
Simple design, taken from an inventor with a helmet that he got in the store and put a water gun on it that happened to be my water gun, and demonstrated it for the toy companies. Another product is that bubble one I was showing you before, and this is what Fisher-Price did.
Hot summer's day and you're stuck at home. You'll have wet, wild, crazy fun with the Fisher-Price Splash Dome.
And I got one more.
Ooh, I wanna take you, Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama, Key Largo,
My daughter, several years ago. My son, several years ago. You make your own videos, you demonstrate the product. You're not doing it to the public, you're doing it to manufacturers, you're trying to license it.
That's where you wanna go, take it away from it all.
So that simple idea from a prototype, a breadboard prototype, Fisher-Price again made a product out of it. Made millions of dollars on water toys, as silly as it sounds.
Silly Willy! Silly Willy water whale, water spins from fins and sails! Bubbles hip-hop from his hat, lots of bubbles! Silly Willy! Silly Willy bubbling sprinkler, new from Fisher-Price!
And then this is a recent one that I got a patent on a couple of months ago. It's a changing digital barcode for the changing digital world.
This is a screenshot of the ticket I purchased. Because it's not the actual ticket, but just a picture of it, When I scan the screen, it will not be verified. If I open the E-Pass app, you see the barcode has changed. It can now be scanned and verified. Nobody gets in unless they have the verified barcode.
And so what I'm trying to demonstrate is that even with a programmed invention, like a barcode changing, which is a written program, it's code, but you don't have to file a patent on the program. You could file a patent on the method of what the program does. The program code could be written in the patent, but it's not called a program patent. It's called a method claim patent utility patent. Now, once you get all of this, making these prototypes and searching it, and you want to show people this, and you filed for your provisional, you still should file an NDA with the person that you're working with. Sign an NDA with the company just as an added precaution. I personally don't believe that much in an NDA if you have a patent filed for, but you should file, if you don't file for the provisional, you should definitely file an NDA. If you do file it for a provisional, it's optional. Again, number 7 is to promote it. Self-promoting a new idea is easy if your new idea is good. If I get a ball to float above a tee and I could show it's good for eye-hand coordination for a ball player, a baseball player in America with a hard ball on it, I could make one as a toy, different variations, and then promote it. Go to People magazine, go to your local magazines, tell them you got this great new idea, and you could probably get them to do a story on it. And it only helps you license it in the end. And even when I promoted my water gun, which I've made millions of dollars on, they called it a silly invention. I went to an invention show in 1974 with Post-it note and with a battery-operated water gun. I called it press-on memo. And at that show, everybody ignored the press-on memo Post-it note, except 3M. They came over to the booth and took samples. But everybody ignored it and thought it was just silly to have glue on the back of a piece of paper. Because putting glue on the back of a piece of paper would add cost, labor, and who's going to pay $9.99 for a scrap paper, which in those days, that's what we called it. So the news came over to my booth, ignored the press-on memo Post-it note, and played with my water gun, mocking it.
Well, there were silly inventions like this water submachine gun that runs on batteries.
If you notice in his voice, he went, run by batteries. He obviously didn't think it would do well. But 10 years from that, I made $250 million a year in revenue with the battery-operated water guns and spun off other toys like the shout and shoot that you saw and different bubble toys. Water was, for some reason, I did a lot of water toys. I don't know why. These are some of the products that I offered for license, which is your next step, number 8. After you do step 7, go to step 8 and offer it for license. Take all of your things that you did, make a video, the website, getting publicity. And for example, when I invented my photo wallet for Nikon, I took it to the Oscars in Hollywood, and I went backstage and I showed the press that was back there, because the digital camera just came out. Digital camera came out in 1999 to the professional world first, like Sports Illustrated, all the newspapers, all the magazines, and they all bought them, and they would take pictures, and they'd have a little screen on the back of it like this. And they couldn't proof pictures, so they shot 1 million pictures, hoping they'd get one good one. So I gave them my photo wallet, which is a 4-inch screen like you have on your iPhone now, and I actually said, try this. Take your compact flash, is what they used digitally in those days, which was the first compact flash card, and put it into my player from your camera, and all your pictures will be full 4-inch screen. You'll be able to see it. So they loved it, and Nikon ended up licensing because of it. It doesn't cost you anything to come up with a really good idea and do my first 2 steps, drawing it and searching it. Because if you draw it and you search it and you don't find it, go forward. If you draw it and you search it and you find it, I'll give you a story. My daughter came up with a really great idea, she thought, of a beach chair with a hole in the front so when you're laying down, you could put a book underneath. She called me up and said, Dad, file a patent on it. It's a great idea. So I said, did you Google it? She said, no. I Googled it, Amazon.com, $49.95. You could have one delivered to your house tomorrow. So I called my daughter and I showed it. I went online and showed it to her. She said they stole my idea. I said, how could you say it? You just came up with it. They've been working on this for over 1.5 years, 2 years, and now they're on the market with it. Stop it. So she completely, that was like a one-day excitement for her coming up with this great idea. But that's just a typical example. And you should partner with professionals along the way to share your costs and your revenue. If you partner with a professional artist, lawyer, engineer, you'll save a lot of out-of-pocket money, and if your product is successful, you'll share in the revenue with him. There's 3 kinds of responses you get when you tell people you got a great idea. First thing everybody says is it can't be done. Like with my Post-it note, they said that's ridiculous, it just can't be done. It will never work, and it's already been done. Those are typical answers. A lot of people have other things like, why do they need you? Why would that work? Why would you need to have to do that? And why it's important to inspire people, no matter who they are in this world, at what level they are in this world, everybody gets depressed. So when you can, if you inspire somebody, it feels good. Now this is not something I should say after saying I should inspire you, but 98% of all patents in the world make no money whatsoever. 2% of the patents in the world make money. And when I mean money, I mean any money, like a penny. 98% of the patents in the patent office don't even make a penny. But yet people do it anyway because you got the 2% where you could end up making a lot of money. This is my example of inspiration. Right here in Latvia, last week, I was at a dinner with the Prince of England. His mother is the Queen. You would think he has no problems in the world. As soon as I met him, the first thing he said to me was, my charity in America is not getting the attention it deserves. So I said, cheer up, it'll get better, keep doing it. So even inspiring a prince, I mean, you're talking about the level in life of inspiring people, this is a typical example of everyone needs to have inspiration. Now there's 3 things that need to line up for you to be in the 2% to make money on a patent. First thing is, you need to have the right, you got to come out with it like at the right time. Like when I came out with the photo wallet for Nikon camera, it was so way ahead of its time, nobody knew what a JPEG was. Nobody knew what an .mov was. So it was hard to sell a product that people would play something that they didn't even know what was, except the professionals, like Sports Illustrated and the people in the press. So the right time, the right place, and the right product need to align for it to be successful. If any one of those are off, like it's not the right time, or not the right place, or not the right product, it's just not going to work. You have to have all 3. 50% of all inventions are invented because of necessity, meaning that you, like with the Post-it note, I needed to leave a note for my wife. I didn't have any Scotch tape, so I had to figure out a way of putting it on the refrigerator. But I had to figure out putting it on the refrigerator so it wouldn't leave a mark, that it could come off and be put back on again. I mean, this is something that you have to, that's necessity. I needed to do that, so I invented it. 40% of all inventions are dreaming. The iPad and the photo wallet I invented while I was sleeping. Paul McCartney says he writes songs that way, just so that you don't think I'm crazy completely. Paul McCartney says he wakes up in the middle of the night from a dream, and he had a song or a tune in his mind, so he writes it down and goes back to sleep. Wakes up in the morning, if the tune is good to him and he finds out it's not anywhere else, he'll pursue it. Same thing with me. I had a dream. Has anybody ever been in an Apple store in America? There's iPads connected to a wire so you can't steal them. So in 1999, when there was no Apple stores and there was pretty much not even an Apple, I woke up in the middle of the night from a dream. My dream was that I saw, I called it a video page when I invented it, a page, flat, same as an iPad today, attached to a wire. And it was on a pedestal. And I looked around and I thought this was such a cool idea, I gotta have this. So I started to move away from the pedestal, taking it home with me, and then I got caught. I couldn't go any further. And so when I woke up, I realized that that's a great idea. Thing is now, think that 20 years later, you go into an Apple store and you see an iPad connected to a wire, that's foresight. Either that or I was here before and I was in the Apple store and I'm created again and I saw it 20 years before it existed. Who are inventors? Everybody, lawyers, doctors, everybody, bus drivers, you all are inventors. You got to come up with something new, novel, and unique. And if it's not been done before, you're an inventor. If it's been done before, you might have seen it somewhere and subconsciously thought you came up with it. So to go over the steps again, you got to write it to explain it, draw it to show it, search it to pursue it, make it to demonstrate it, protect it to own it, promote it to expose it, and license it to get revenue from it. Why I call this my billion-dollar lesson lecture is because I invented the press-on memo. It made billions of dollars. I invented the iPhone basically without the phone part, just the video part, and the iPad, and it made billions of dollars. I personally didn't share in either one of those for different reasons. One was on the Post-it note. The product, I didn't know was going to be that big a hit. People convinced me it was just a piece of paper with glue on it. And who's going to pay $9.99 for scrap pads? So when 3M approached me to not pursue it, I settled for a very small amount of money. Silly, but in those days, you did what you could to make a living, and it came out of my head, so I figured I'll do more of them. I'll make a lot more. And then with the iPad, I called the video page. What happened with that was we went to a bank for $3.5 million. They gave it to us because we brought into a bank in 1999 magic. Can you imagine going into a bank with an iPad 20 years back? You took it from 2016 and went 20 years back. Brought it into a bank and asked for $3.5 million. They gave it to us. Problem was, they hired a CEO to run the company, and the CEO never paid for the patents, never filed any of the proper paperwork, and everybody got screwed. The bank got screwed, I got screwed, so that, but I do still have the patents on the designs of the iPad and the iPhone, but like I told you, they're worthless. Now here's the photo wallet, and an interesting story. I was at the CES show, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Nevada, with this great new breakthrough invention called the photo wallet and the video page. This is in 1999. CNN, out of all the products at the show, wanted to show my product in the morning at like 4:30 in the morning in Las Vegas, which whatever time it was in the rest of the world. And so they were going to put my photo wallet, which you can see right in front of the woman on the screen. I'm going to show you the video. I was under the table while they were shooting this, changing batteries. Because in those days, battery life on showing pictures lasted 5 minutes. Also, the capacity of the cards we had in those days were 4 meg. 4 meg card in those days holds 4 JPEG pictures. And where do you get the JPEG pictures from? We didn't have digital cameras. That was my problem. So what I had to do is I took a picture of Snoopy, because he was white and cute, and I had one picture like this digitized, which took an hour. I had it professionally digitized. They didn't call it a JPEG, it was a digitized image. And then I had one with him facing that way, and they digitized it. What I did was I made motion video by him going like this, and I made the still, and I showed it in the video page and the photo wallet. This is what CNN reported while I was underneath changing batteries.
It has a video camera that you can print pictures right on the spot, so you can take video images and then
you see it's changing. It was changing on the bottom.
Those. We also have Video Chip Technologies wallet. Now this is the roll of film today. It's digital, but how do you see this? Well, with this wallet, you just basically insert the card, and you can see what, 1,000 pictures. This costs about $350.
We only had 4 pictures on the card, though. We knew that the density of the card...
Now we have a weather station that
I knew the density on the card was going to go up, which it obviously has with SD cards now. You can buy them in gigs, 32 gigs, 64 gigs. And the battery life was going to be longer. I was right on both of those, but timing-wise wasn't the greatest. So again, I didn't know when they were going on the air, because in television you don't know when they're going to actually be live. So I had to go under the bench, which was a curtained bench. Nobody saw me under there. And I had wires coming down, and I had to keep changing the batteries because I didn't know when they were going to be going on air. And what I was changing the batteries for is so that picture that's in the photo wallet would keep changing so people would see, you could see a lot of different images on it. Bill Gates from Microsoft in 1999 bought 6 of my photo wallets. He put one in the lobby of Microsoft in Seattle. And I found out about this only later on because people were going into the lobby saying, wow, there's this amazing electronic device that's not plugged into anything, and it's showing pictures constantly, the digital frame. Very impressed that, that Bill Gates would want to buy that. This is my newest product I invented for the NFL in America, the National Football League. This is the animation. That's the animation I made to sell it to the NFL. And if you'll notice, USA Today Sports, which is the biggest sports publication in America, put it on their back page because they thought it was cool. That was before the NFL decided to use it, or anybody decided to use it. We're still having trouble with the NFL to take it because of different various reasons, but we have tested it in track and field with the NCAA National Championship. This is part of promoting it as well. When you have an invention and you want to promote it, and if it's a good enough idea, you'll get all the press and everybody to self-promote it for you. This is the line on the field is projected from the tower, and it disappears. Now that's not a nice clean graphic. What that was is a projected laser from the roof of the building onto the ground so the people in the stadium could see it and the athletes could see it. Now the athletes seeing it's important because we heard from them that if they see where they need to beat with the shot put, or they see where they need to beat with the long jump and the triple jump, they actually jump and throw a foot or so further than they would normally. And the reason for that is it's a human nature to want to strive more when you see what you have to beat as opposed to just knowing where a line is or a button is or a flag is on the side. Now my first down laser I'm bringing to Europe for soccer. We have, right now you know that soccer uses a foam spray around the ball to show the free kick. Now that's pretty silly. In America we look at that as being very silly. But what we have is we could project the circle around the team that has the free shot and do it and turn it right off as soon as they're done with it. So then we figured out that we could also do your offsides line, which is invisible right now, just like our first down line is in football. It's invisible right now, and the referee, if he's on an angle and he calls the guy offsides, he may not have been at the right angle, but the fans that were say the guy was wrong, the referee was wrong. So we actually have the line moving up and down the field following the color of the team from whatever side, offense or defense. So we're offering that to FIFA right now and the International World Soccer. From a simple idea of showing a line on a football field to using it in soccer, we also now use it in warehouses. If anybody knows anything about a warehouse, you have cautionary lines to keep people in line so they don't get hit by these vehicles moving around. What we did was we got called from Stanley Black & Decker in New York, in Durham, North Carolina, and he asked us if we could use our football laser line on the floor in his warehouse. So we went down there and we projected the line on this floor. We could make it 4 inches long, 4 inches wide by 50 feet long, and then put a projector every 50 feet and continue that line throughout the warehouse. What it saves them is the re-etching of the line. Every couple of weeks they have to put down a new line. And so what that does is it saves them from having to repaint the line. Now this is to show you that an idea is, any invention doesn't have to be a product. It could be just a simple idea. When I was younger, I asked everybody in the world to send me $1. I wanted to bring the Beatles back together. They just split up. So what I did was I put an ad in the Village Voice in America, in New York. It cost me like maybe $150. Rolling Stone picked it up as an op-ed, and they started writing about it. All the newspapers in the whole world started writing about it. What they were doing when they were writing about it was putting my ad in all of their writings. So I was getting dollars from everywhere in the world, even from Germany, Brazil, France, and I'd see the money and I wouldn't even understand it because American money to me is the only money I understood. Management. I got to Muhammad Ali. He called me when I was trying to get the Beatles back together again. And he said, Alan, I want to help you get the Beatles back. So we became really good friends, and he asked me to help him in his management. I was a young guy, I was aggressive, and he saw that he could tap into that, and he did, because he was being managed by the black Muslims in America. And black Muslims in America, just like everywhere else in the world, were scary in those days. So having me in front for them was exactly what I was doing. They were telling me what they wanted me to do for Ali. But again, I'm just trying to show businesses and ideas or startups and incubators are different and can be just management, an idea of getting to be his manager. Here are different forms of ideas that I did. For example, I'm not a doctor, but I knew that the AIDS epidemic when I was younger was terrible. We were afraid of everything, including getting into a car accident and having to go into the hospital using blood, somebody else's blood, which in those days was terrible because you didn't know who was given that blood. It could have been somebody with AIDS. So what I did was I partnered with a hematologist. I told him my idea of opening a blood bank where people could come in and use their own blood for their own use. They call it autologous blood. In those days, autologous blood was illegal. You weren't allowed to go into the hospital and use your family member's blood or your blood. It had to be blood they got from the blood bank. So when I started this blood bank, it took off because everybody wanted to use their own blood for their own use. The American Red Cross bought this blood bank from us, and a couple of months later, autologous blood was used in America. I'm not saying I had anything to do with that, but I'm sure that had something to do with it. I started an airline. I mean, you could think of anything you want to do in this world, just start doing it. I wanted to start an airline flying from New York to LA. I was managing celebrities in LA, and I was flying back and forth with people like Dick Clark, presidents and CEOs of all of the studios, and I became friends with them. And eventually I said, you know what, I got a great idea. Why don't we all get together and have a condominium airline where every studio owns their own seat, and we go back and forth once a day, and we go back and forth once a day. And they all thought it was a great idea. I had Frank Sinatra as my partner because he thought it was a great idea, and I met his daughter Tina, and we became friends. Frank Sinatra's idea was to put this canopy on the plane, so when he gets out of his car, he doesn't get wet. That was his contributing to our venture. And we ended up selling seats to certain companies and stuff, but eventually what happened was the tax laws didn't work out for us, and it wasn't good business for these people to do it. So, but if you'll notice, I did this in 1980, and today they have where you could buy seats on an airplane. They have airplane sharing. They have different ways you can actually use private jets. These are some of the products that I have in the stores, like slip and slide, some of you might notice, the water guns, air pressurized water guns. Now, when Robert De Niro is in a picture with my toy, I'm impressed. When I first saw my Post-it note or my press-on memo product, I saw it in the space shuttle. I'm sitting with my son watching TV, and the news comes on, and the space shuttle, the astronaut is floating around in the air, and he's posting a note on his console. My son and I went nuts. That was like, my idea is in space. So seeing your own idea, whether it be Robert De Niro using it or Brad Pitt, it's very exciting. Makes it all pretty much worthwhile. These are some of the other products. I had 3 encounters with Donald Trump that are interesting. First time I met Donald Trump, his father and my father were doing business together. My father had a meat store, or a chain of meat stores in New York, Brooklyn, and Donald Trump's father owned the shopping center it was in. And my father was renegotiating the contract with Fred Trump, which is Donald's father. Fred Trump said to me, go out and sit in the car with my son. Tell him I'll be out in a minute. His son was Donald Trump. I go into the car, open up the back of the limousine, I look in, and there's this kid. I was 17, I think he was 18, or I was 16, and he was 17. I saw this kid wearing a suit. I never saw a kid in America wearing a suit at 16 years old, except for like, funerals and bar mitzvahs and things like that. But he was wearing a suit, and he wasn't very friendly. And I told him what his father told me to tell him. Then a number of years later, I met him here, which was in New York when I was with my partner, Pat Summerall, who was the voice of the NFL, and Donald Trump owned a team that we were trying to get to be involved with our first down laser line. So Donald Trump says to us, you just tell him Donald Trump says it's going to work, and it'll work. Obviously, that's absurd and silly, but that's what he said. We never really went any further. Then my third encounter was I was at his golf course in Doral in Florida, sitting and having lunch, and he was sitting at the table next to me, and I went over to him, and I said, Donald, remember me? He said, no. I said, remember I met you with your father, Fred, in Brooklyn? No. Remember I met you with Pat Summerall in your office? Oh, I remember something, but no. And so he's a nice guy. He's quiet. He's not the same as he is on TV. I got to tell you. Muhammad Ali's the same thing. Muhammad Ali had a history of being very rambunctious, very loud, but in real life he was very meek, very calm, and a very nice guy. I'm not saying Donald Trump's all that, but I'm saying he's not the same as he was on TV, that he is on TV. Also, people like Christy McNichol, I managed her for a number of years, all because I came from Muhammad Ali. As soon as they saw I had anything to do with Muhammad Ali, they wanted me to manage them for their career. And I got her a Christy doll. I got Benson from Soap. I don't know if anybody here knows what Soap is on TV, a serial. It's an ABC show that this Robert Guillaume in Benson, he actually starred as the guy named Benson in that show. He came to me and said, Alan, I want you to help my career. I said, I can't do anything for you. I don't know how to do this. He said, well, you manage Muhammad Ali, you manage Christy McNichol. Why can't you manage me? I said, because they're already stars. I don't know what to do with people that are not stars. When they're stars, people come to you. You don't have to go to them. So he said, well, I just want you to go and negotiate my deal with ABC. So I said, okay. So I made a meeting with his boss, Tony Thomas at ABC. I went to him for lunch. He sat me down. As soon as I sat down, he says, listen, Alan, I'm going to give Bob his own show. Now, I had no idea what that meant, but it wasn't bad. Couldn't have been bad. He says, Bob's going to have his own show on ABC called Benson. So I said, okay, great. I finished lunch with Tony Thomas. I go back to Bob's house in LA, and I said, Bob, I got you your own show. He says, you are incredible. How did you do that? I said, I didn't. I just walked in and he gave it to me. He didn't believe me. He thinks I sold him on it. So you got to be in the right place too sometimes for things to happen. And that's my airline idea, where I put on the back page of Variety magazine in LA and how we try to sell seats on the airline. And a Hollywood Reporter, I'm sorry. And then on the top you see there's an ad or an article in the Daily News in New York where Muhammad Ali is helping Alan Amron to get the Beatles back together, which didn't hurt the money that was coming in from all over the world, the fact that Muhammad Ali was part of it. The money, when it came in, just to be, so you know, was a fiduciary kind of responsibility. So what I did was I went to a bank, Chase Manhattan Bank, explained the whole thing to them, and said, I want to deposit all the dollars that come in into your account for a fiduciary to give to the Beatles if they do it. If the Beatles don't do it, I want you to give it to charity. Because I didn't want to get into trouble for taking people's money and then not getting the Beatles back together. Incubators and startups and accelerators in Latvia and in the Baltic states and all over pretty much the world. In America, it's not exactly as hot as it used to be. In 1990, Bill Gates started the words startup and incubators and accelerators. In 1990, that's a long time ago, and they're still using it. I personally tell all the incubators and startups that I see here at the university, I tell them not to say you have a startup. Tell them you got a great idea. Get enthusiastic about your idea. Tell them you have a great idea. And tell them you're in development with that idea, as opposed to startup and incubator say great idea and in development. I found two major problems in Latvia: patent protection knowledge and also entrance to US markets knowledge. I'm telling the people that I meet here that the first thing they got to do on patent protection is file a provisional for $130 like I told you before. That's the first thing. Second thing is, once you file a provisional, you should tell everybody you can about it. because you're already protected, so you might as well tell everybody about it. Entrance into America, you start at the top. Whatever your product is, whatever field it's in, you try to go to the biggest company in the world. Now, you may not be able to reach the CEO of that company, but at every one of these companies, there's somebody called the Vice President of New Product Development. That person's job is to listen to your idea. If they get something really exciting, they're going to go and tell their boss about it. Now, the problem with that is they're going to have to sell it to their boss, and then they're going to have to sell it to their boss, and before it gets to the CEO, it's not the same pitch you gave them. So my recommendation is you ought to stay hard-pressed to be in touch with the CEO of the company. Try to get to him. There's always you can try to figure it out. If your idea is good enough, he's not just going to throw to you to scam. He's going to look at it if the idea is good enough and you can catch his attention. I'm giving an analogy here of going to war school and then going to war. You're much better off going to somebody that's been in war and knows what war is like. I'm not saying it's bad to go to school to learn, but you really should learn a little bit about what it's like to be in the real world, because it's a little bit different. These are some of the lectures I did in Latvia. These are the lectures I'm doing for like NYU. I'm going to Berkeley in a couple of weeks, and I did Hofstra in America. And basically what I'm trying to do is convince people, I'm trying to educate and inspire people to do what I did. This was in your local paper last week. I met with the University of Latvia, and I wanted to teach a course about my experiences, and they thought it was a great idea, and so we're going to be next year adding to their startup incubator course, we're adding my portion of real life experiences in patent and protection and what they could do in the startups. And then finally, has anybody read this book? Okay. In America, this book is required reading. You must read it in college and in high school in America. I got a phone call from, and this is to show you why being naive sometimes helps. I got a phone call from Tina Sinatra in LA. Tina Sinatra's father is Frank, and she told Frank that Alan can sell ice in the winter. Alan can sell sand to the Arabs, you know, all those cliches. And so he said, oh yeah, well, why don't you tell him to get the rights to The Catcher in the Rye for a movie? So she called me up on the phone and she said, Alan, I want you to go get the rights to The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I said, tell me how to do it. I had no idea how to do it. She said, first of all, find out where J.D. Salinger is. I said, how do I do that? She said, I don't know, you'll figure it out. I said, okay. So I got off the phone and I asked my wife if she read it, and she did. And so I said, well, tell me about the book and tell me about J.D. Salinger. She said, well, why don't you buy what they called in those days the Cliff Notes? I don't know if they still have Cliff Notes, but in those days they did a summary of the book. And I bought the Cliff Notes and I read it and I saw what the story was about. I wasn't impressed, but if Frank Sinatra wants to make a movie out of it, I'm all for it. So I read in the back of the Cliff Notes where J.D. Salinger lived. It said Cornish, New Hampshire. Now here I am in New York, so I figured, how far can Cornish be? I went to the airport, I bought a ticket, I flew to Cornish, New Hampshire. I didn't call anybody in advance, I didn't make any reservations anywhere, I just went and did it. When I landed in Cornish, New Hampshire, it was one plane, just me getting off, and there was no other planes leaving, going back to New York till later this afternoon. One flight in, one flight out. I got out of after I got out of the plane, I went into the local taxi. There was one cab out front. I said to the guy, take me to J.D. Salinger's house. He said, I can't. Unless you have an appointment, I can't take you there. Now, why did I think he knew where J.D. Salinger lives? Small town like Cornish, New Hampshire, a guy like J.D. Salinger, well known, somebody's going to know where he lives. A taxi driver's got to know where he lives. So I said, look, I don't have an appointment, but here's a $100 bill. Please take me to J.D. Salinger's house. So he just turned around and started driving. And when I got to J.D. Salinger's house, he pulls into the driveway, and I roll down the window. And there were no gates in those days. It's like this is way before 9/11. So there were no gates. So we pull up into front of his house, and this tall, older man comes running out on the balcony, waving his hand to get off his property. And the guy said, that's him, that's J.D. Salinger, let's go, we got to get out of here. And he puts the car in reverse. I said, no, you stay where you are. I rolled down the window, because he had dogs barking. I didn't want to get bitten. And I rolled down the window and I said, listen, are you J.D. Salinger? Get the hell off my property. He wouldn't answer me. And I wasn't leaving. I told the guy, stay where you are. And I was in a company that I started, I was like 24 years old. I started this company, and in those days we had check-making machines that you can actually print the number of how much that check is going to be really officially. And it looked like, and I wrote one of my company checks that had maybe $14 in the account for $1 million. And I made it out to J.D. Salinger. So I made this check before I left. I kept it in my wallet. And when I got to the house and he wouldn't answer me, I rolled down the window further and I showed him the check. And I said, I have $1 million for you for the rights to the book, and I'm coming to you from Columbia Pictures in Hollywood. Now, I wasn't coming from Columbia Pictures in Hollywood, and I wasn't coming from Hollywood. But it sounded better. It was more urgent. It was more like, hey, I flew all the way out here to see you. Please see me. So finally he says, get off my property again. Not interested. And I said, listen, just tell my boss I was here. That's all I wanted. I wanted Frank Sinatra to know at least I presented this to the guy, right? And he wasn't having that. And then he started saying, Hollywood will bastardize it. Hollywood will ruin it. They won't do a good job on it. So I thought I had him talking, but then once he stopped that, he started saying get off his property again. Then he was using a lot of foul language to get off the property. So I said to the cab driver, okay, leave. We're wasting our time. I was there probably for about 20 minutes. And so then I get to the airport, and I was pretty depressed because Frank Sinatra was not going to know I was there. So I get to the airport, and I get on the phone, and I call Tina's office, and she puts me on speakerphone. And they're all laughing. They're laughing like something was very funny that I didn't know what they were laughing about. I said, what's so funny? I got to see the guy, but how are you going to know? His agent just called and said, keep that guy off my property. Thank you. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Thank you for such an inspiring talk. I've got a question. How do you get from the idea to the product? Because sometimes, for example, with a photo wallet, it's a hard technology. It's design and technology inside. Do you do it by yourself, or do you have a team of people? And if you do have a team of people, how do you find these people? Are those friends, or do you connect with the companies, or how is the process done?
You know, when you have inspiration and you have a good idea, it's easy to find people in that industry that like it too. And if they like it, then you really got a good idea. And nobody knows an idea about whether it's good or not better than the people in that industry. So if you invent something in that industry and you go to a guy in that industry like a designer or an engineer or an artist, he'll help you, and you could offer him a piece of what you got. You know, you could offer them a piece of your venture. You could tell them that if you do the drawings for me, I'll give you like 3% of my project. If you do the engineering for me, I'll give you like 15% of my project. And that's what I did my whole life. I never paid any money for any of my inventions. All those prototypes that I had made or made myself, I paid no money for. I had engineers that got pieces. I had lawyers that got pieces. Because everybody loves good ideas. If it's a good idea, they're going to want to be involved.
Thank you very much.
Could you explain a little bit more the difference between utility patent and design patent, and how do they work in US compared, let's say, to Europe?
Well, if you file a patent in the United States, even a provisional patent in the United States, you have a year to file the rest of the world. The rest of the world has a pact called a PCT pact with America. So if you file in America, even a provisional, they'll give you 12 months to file anywhere else in the world, like Germany, Brazil, France. I don't know if Latvia is part of that PCT. Probably not. But to answer your question, the design patent different from a utility patent. Design patent is just on the look, just what it looks like. Like I have a design patent on the iPad and the iPhone. My look of it is without a button. With the button is the look that Apple has. So that changes a design patent. Utility patent, it's pretty much new, novel, and unique method claim or a utility of doing something claim that could be similar. You could say, under the doctrine of equivalence, you could say that, okay, they're not literally infringing my patent, but under the doctrine of equivalence, which is a law in the patent law, says that if it does the same thing in the same way to get the same result, it's infringing. So a utility patent is much more versatile. Does that answer your question?
What happens if, let's say, you explain something you want a patent, in utility patent, and someone actually built something quite similar, but there is some detail is missing or added, how does it work then? Is it infringing your patent or not?
If it does the same thing, substantially the same way, to get substantially the same result, it's infringing. So if he does it a little bit differently than you did it, and you have a patent filed on it, he's not going to get around your patent, because in your patent it will say, or equivalent. In other words, you're going to describe how you want it done, and you're going to say, but not limited to. In other words, you're not limiting it to the way you're describing it. That's an embodiment, a first embodiment. It could be done in his embodiment. If your idea is written properly, you'll be protected.
You see, has some of your idea ever been stolen?
Yes.
Yes.
16 times. My battery.
What you are doing in this case?
Okay, 16 times. What did I do? The first time I got really screwed by hiring a lawyer, and he charged me a lot of money and didn't do anything more than I would have done, because he kept saying, what should I do here? What should I do here? He knew the law, but he didn't know my invention, and that's a problem. So what I did from number 2 to 16, I did it pro bono. In other words, I represented myself. An inventor is allowed to represent himself. Pretty much anybody in the world is allowed to represent themselves pro se, but specifically in the patent world, if you're the patent inventor, you could actually go out and pro se sue somebody. But somebody else, unless they're hired by you, can't. So you can't have like a co-inventor or somebody that's a partner with you in a company sue over your patent, because they're not the inventor. Only inventor can hire somebody to sue for their patent. To answer your question about what mine, I had 16 successful pro se cases. And when I say successful, I never went to fruition. What I did was I learned how to do a summons and complaint, and I sent it to the company that was knocking me off and said, either pay me a royalty or stop making the product. And as soon as they were served with the papers, 99% of them settled and agreed to a license agreement. 3M as well, with Post-it notes. When I first sued them for Post-it notes, I didn't have even a patent. All I had was trade secret, and I had disclosed my trade secret to them at this inventor show. And once I had them in a complaint, sent the complaint to them, they obviously in a couple of weeks settled the case and said, look, this guy showed me all the proof that he invented it. They may have met with the people that I met with at the show and said, yeah, he did show it to us. That I don't know for sure. But they settled right away. Most people will. Nobody wants to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in litigation. I'll give you an example. You know the swipe on your phone? Samsung has the swipe to turn on your digital phone. A guy invented that, and it's called a method claim. He invented the method of turning on an electronic device. He got a patent on that. He licensed it to Samsung. Samsung put it on the phones, and everybody knows the history on that. iPhone used it at Apple. Samsung sued Apple, and just a couple of weeks ago won $1 billion, plus Apple no longer uses the swipe. Anybody in this room has an Apple iPhone? Go to your phone right now and see why you don't have the swipe anymore. See, nobody knows that. They did it very subtly. You downloaded their upgrade like everybody does normally. Then when you go to turn your phone on, you're going, where's the swipe? Well, that's a patent issue. Any other questions?
Thanks for a great talk. And my question is about your future. Where do you look? What's interesting to you at the moment? Everything's changing so quickly. Where do you look?
Oh, take the microphone away from your
Yeah,
face.
sorry.
Further away from your mouth. I can't understand you.
Where do you look at the moment? What are your
Oh, startups. Startups.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at the University of Latvia. I've been meeting with 76 of their startups, and so far, every single one of them that I saw had some inspiration, something I saw there, a spark. Some of them didn't have the complete spark, but I did see the spark, and I would try to show them where the spark was. Some of them didn't even know what their invention was. They just had this great idea. They didn't really know what to do with it, but I actually told them what their invention was. Now, I'm not the inventor of what I told them. I'm what you would call work for hire. The guy that has the spark, that starts the startup, that gets the people started on talking and figuring and making it better and doing all, that's the inventor. The inventor comes to me, tells me about his startup, I give him ideas of how he can make it better. I'm a work for hire. I happen to be for free, but I'm a work for hire.
and what is your dream right now?
But my dream is to do this course. I want this course to be in America, and when I went to universities in America, for them to do this course that I'm proposing is not as easy as somewhere else, like in Europe, like here. It takes 3 years there. Here, I went in to see the dean at the university. I did a lecture there, and he and I hit it off really well. He's going to be the co-professor. I'm not a professor, so I really can't teach a class, but he's teaching the academic part. I'm teaching the real life part, and we're partnering in making this a new kind of course. Then the university will go to America, to where they have these booths where all the universities meet once a year, and they all share their ideas. Well, then the rest of the world will get to see what I would like to teach. Because, like, for example, it's not just in Latvia. America, a lot of startups also don't know anything about protecting their idea or how simple it is to just take an idea and file a provisional. For $130, you could write United States patent pending under your slides. When you're demonstrating it for a licensor or you're raising money, if you write United States patent pending on the bottom there, that will impress people, and it'll make it easier for you to raise money, I believe. Anything else?
Apologise, Alan, if this you covered in the first slide, but do you ever find that if you're trying to find key partners and having an NDA before going into potentially a partnership talk, could it actually hinder your chances of establishing that connection with a key partner?
Most big companies don't want to sign NDAs. You know, so if you're dealing with a big company, you're probably just going to have to. What I tell all the startups, when you go to a big company and you don't have an NDA, all you have to do after your meeting, like they're meeting with me and I don't have an NDA with them. So they'd be afraid that I would steal it from them. So to reassure them, I tell them, well, you know what you do? When you, even to me, send me an email after we have this meeting, thanking me for the meeting, date, time, and what you discussed, and put that away. Emails have time dates on them. And in litigation, emails are admissible. So you could show, if that company you brought the idea to, if you could show you showed it to them and then they started working on it, you win. If you say that you started here and they could show you they started here, you're going to lose. But you should always write an email confirming that you met with the person and thank you for the, not making it obvious, you know, saying, this is so that I can make sure that you don't steal it. You know, don't say that. Just make it very friendly and nice and matter-of-factly, and he won't think anything of it. But for you, it's a way of confirming that I've disclosed my idea to this guy, whoever he is. That's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys were great. Thank you.
Also,
thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
And